Moving on to the transfer window, obviously it hasn't been the busiest period for West Ham this time around, but there's still a few days to go. Obviously we've had a few things like Zarate going out, Daniil Henry coming in. Guys, if you look now, there'll be a few odds up on the screen. Do you fancy any of these? Maybe Darren Fletcher, he's been hotly talked about to join the club. Wally, you think perhaps maybe that could be a signal that Alex Song will be going in the summer?
Well, there's a few midfield players on there, so you know, I don't know what the source for this is, but that was my initial take on the Song situation. When West Ham got him, I thought he'd be using that to catapult himself into the Champions League position clubs. If that hasn't happened, that may be because of the dip. But you know, Darren Fletcher, it's funny. When I was working with Steve Coppell, he always said, "Be very wary about taking Man United players who'd been there for a while, because they have been Man United players for a long time, and sometimes you can get them disguise their deficiencies playing in such a good team." I'm not saying that about Fletcher, but you know, he's banging on a bit now. He's 28. He looks like a Song replacement. I can't see the two of them playing together.
And then Jacob, what's your view on that move? Do you think it's imminent, and would you be happy to see Fletcher arrive at the club?
It's a difficult one, I think, just because of the lack of playing time he's had for the last 2 or 3 years. But I suppose that there is something certainly in what you say about signing Manchester United players. They sometimes maybe do have a dip when they leave that club. I think maybe the difference with Fletcher is that he still has a lot to prove, that he can still play football at the highest level. And I think he's definitely someone who would bring with him a good mentality.
And and then how good Winston Reid? Do you think he's worth keeping here, or is he not as hard to replace as some might think?
He's been fantastic for West Ham, apart from obviously the slightly iffy first season where he really had a hard time when he came to England. But since then, he's been brilliant. He's been the best defender, probably one of the best players in the team, one of the most important players in the team. But I think that sometimes, as I was saying before, centre halves are not as hard to replace maybe as an Alex Song type or a striker who scores goals. I think obviously they're a very important part of the team, but maybe they're a little bit cheaper to replace.
And then, I mean, obviously he's 1 to 5 to stay at West Ham this window, so it looks like hopefully he will be sticking around. But then there's lots of talk of a move to maybe Tottenham, which would probably hurt more than a lot of other places. What do you make of that, Wally?
I've got to be honest, I think he'll go, Winston. I think, you know, at the end of the season he goes for nothing. West Ham win on Saturday. That puts them just about the 40 points mark. Wouldn't surprise me if they were ready to cash in for however much it is. If he's got Tottenham and Arsenal both vying for him, I don't know. You know, it looks to me as though he's done his time there, Winston, and the perception is that, well, Arsenal, bigger, more successful club, Tottenham, not so much, but they would probably offer him a bigger package to go there. He's a New Zealand boy and lived a long time in Denmark. He's got no real reason to stay. He's a gun for hire. So.
Then obviously possible other departures. We've got Ravel Morrison, who looks to be on his way out to Lazio, having a medical there at the moment. What do you think has gone wrong there? Has he just been given too many chances and not taken them? Obviously you can sort of see there he's not held in high regard these days with the West Ham faithful.
Well, we took him to QPR when I was working at QPR last year, and he came in and he did really well for 5 or 6 games, scored some goals. But unfortunately Ravel just can't seem to keep any level of consistent behaviour going. He seems to relax and wants to live his own life. He's a nice kid. He's not he doesn't cause any problems during training. It's just that some days he might want to be in Manchester, and unfortunately you can't run a football club like that. You've got to adhere to the rest of the group, and you've got to show some qualities and respect for the other people around you. And unfortunately, with maturity it might come, but he certainly hasn't got it at the moment, Rav. He probably needs to go abroad somewhere, and there may be a slightly more relaxed attitude towards the way he operates.
Jacob, do you think he'll ever make it as a top-class footballer, or is he just got too bad of a head, really, to ever fulfil his potential?
I hope so, because the brief glimpses we saw of him last season, he was absolutely superb. Obviously, the standout moment was that solo goal against Tottenham, and you can see he has all the talent in the world, but that doesn't mean everything does it at the highest level of football. Maybe, but you know, it's hard to see with him.